You know, in the world of cybersecurity, if you're waiting around for an attack to happen, you've already lost. So this explainer is all about being proactive. We're going to cover the entire security lifecycle, from keeping a constant eye on our systems to formally checking for weaknesses, and all the way to having a bulletproof plan for when things inevitably go wrong. This is how we shift from just reacting to problems to actually getting ahead of them.
All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll get the basic language down, talking about events, incidents, and logging. Then, we'll dive into the more formal world of security auditing. After that, we'll look at the official rulebook for audits from NIST, and then we'll zoom in on the tricky business of privacy auditing and PII. And to wrap it all up, we'll cover the emergency response plan, privacy incident management.
Okay, before we can even think about building defenses, we all have to be speaking the same language. In security, words have very precise meanings. And the difference between an event and an incident, well, that's not just playing with words. It's the absolute foundation for everything we do. Getting this right is completely non-negotiable. First up, let's talk about a security event. The official definition is an occurrence considered by an organization to have potential security implications to a system or its environment. The key word to grab onto there is potential. Think of a security event as a maybe. It's a little red flag, something that seems a bit off, a bit suspicious, and makes you go, that's weird. A perfect example is one single failed login attempt. It could just be a typo, right? Or it could be the very beginning of something much worse. It's an event, and we need to be watching it. Now, let's contrast that with a security incident. Here's the definition: an occurrence that actually or potentially jeopardizes the confidentiality, integrity, or availability of an information system. You see the shift? This is where our maybe turns into a definitely. The potential issue is now a real, active problem that is threatening our system. This is a confirmed violation of our security policy, a real breach. And this slide lays it out perfectly. An event has potential implications. An incident means you are in actual jeopardy. An event is just some suspicious activity. An incident is a confirmed violation. Now, you absolutely need to pay close attention to this distinction. This is a very common and critical exam question. Think of it this way: an event is the smoke, an incident is the fire. So, how do we even keep track of all these potential events? We do it through logging. But logging isn't just about writing things down in a notebook. It has very clear goals. We're creating a detailed historical record. This record is crucial because it helps us spot threats before they blow up into incidents. It's what our investigators use for forensics, and it lets us analyze weird behavior to figure out what's normal and what's not. So where do we get all this log data from? The short answer? Pretty much everywhere. We're pulling logs from servers, from individual workstations, from all our applications, and of course, from security tools like antivirus. But what's really important here is the network side. We're monitoring traffic that's entering and leaving our network. You can think of that as data crossing the border. We call that north-south traffic. But just as important, we also monitor the traffic that's moving between our own servers, inside our data center. And that's called east-west traffic. You've got to watch both.
Let's make this real. What kind of stuff are we actually logging? Well, for an operating system, you want to record every single successful and failed login, any changes to user accounts, any password changes. For a network device like a firewall, you're logging all the traffic it decided to allow or block. And for something like a web server, you're looking for major red flags, like someone trying to access files that you know don't exist, or seeing SQL codes stuck in a URL, which is a huge sign of an injection attack.
Okay, so we've collected mountains of data through our logging. Now what? We can't just let it sit there. We need to formally examine it. And that process, that formal investigation, is called auditing. It's the difference between just having a library full of books and having a librarian who actually reads them, understands them, and tells you what's important.
So what exactly is a security audit? The definition is an independent review and examination of a system's records and activities. Put simply, an audit is like an official inspection. An independent party comes in, they look at all your records, your logs, your activities, and they check two things. Are you actually following your own security rules? And more importantly, are those rules any good at protecting you? And what's the #1 tool for any auditor? It's the security audit trail. It's a chronological record of system activities that is sufficient to enable the reconstruction and examination of the sequence of activities.
Honestly, the best way to think about this is like an airplane's black box. It's a perfect step-by-step time-stamped recording that lets you hit rewind and replay everything that happened in the exact order it happened so you can see precisely how an incident unfolded. Now, here's a huge challenge with auditing. You have to find the perfect balance. If you log too little information, your audit trail will have giant holes in it, making it pretty much useless. But if you try to log absolutely everything, you can actually overwhelm your systems and slow everything down to a crawl. The real goal is to collect just enough of the right kind of data, like the key categories you see here, so you have a crystal clear picture without drowning in useless information. It is a constant balancing act. It's also important to note that audits come in two main flavors, internal and external. And this is another one of those key distinctions you'll see on exams. Internal audits are basically self-checks. They're done by your own team, maybe every quarter, just to find weaknesses. External audits, on the other hand, are done by a complete outsider, usually once a year, and their job is a bit different. They're there to check how well you're doing your internal audits and to help you update your overall security policies. So how do we make sure our audits aren't just random checks? How do we make sure they're thorough and standardized? Well, we follow a framework, and the gold standard here is from the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST. We're going to look at their special publication, SP 800-53. You can think of this as the official rulebook for how to do security auditing right. So inside that big NIST framework, the specific section on audit and accountability is built around 16 essential controls. That's the magic number. These 16 controls give you the complete structure for a really solid auditing program. And here they are, the full list of all 16 control categories from NIST. Now, I know what you're thinking, and don't worry. For your exams, you do not need to memorize the tiny details of every single one, but you absolutely should be familiar with their names and have a general idea of what they cover. So just take a second to look them over. For our purposes today, we're going to zoom in on the controls that become super critical when we're dealing with personal data and privacy. Okay, let's shift gears into a really specific and incredibly important area of auditing. What happens when the data we're watching involves personally identifiable information, or PII? Well, that changes everything. The stakes get so much higher, and it brings in a whole new set of rules for logging and auditing. When someone touches PII, a normal log just doesn't cut it. Your privacy event log has to answer 6 very specific questions every single time. 1. What exact piece of data was accessed? 2. Whose data is it? 3. What did the user do with it? 4. When did it happen? 5. Who is the user that did it? And 6. Did they use any special admin privileges to do it? This level of detail is non-negotiable if you want to have any real accountability. So when a privacy auditor shows up, they're going to be asking some very pointed questions. First up, access control. Who can see this personal data? And more importantly, what is their business reason for needing to? Then, authentication. How are you 100% positive that the person accessing the data is who they say they are? Third, data integrity. What's stopping this sensitive data from getting mixed in with less protected data? And finally, user access. Does the actual owner of the data have a way to see it and fix it if it's wrong? So we've covered monitoring our systems and auditing them, but what happens when our monitoring or maybe an audit shows us the worst-case scenario? A privacy breach has actually happened. This brings us to our final section, the emergency response plan, which we call privacy incident management. First, we need to know exactly what a privacy breach is. The official U.S. government definition is a real mouthful. The loss of control, compromise, unauthorized disclosure, unauthorized acquisition, and so on. Let's simplify that. A privacy breach is basically any situation where personal information either gets into the wrong hands or it's used by the right hands, but for the wrong reason. Managing a privacy incident isn't chaos. It's a very clear, structured process with several goals. It's not just about cleaning up the mess. You have to detect the event, respond quickly, and minimize the damage. But then you also have to coordinate with other teams, fix the underlying problem that allowed the breach in the first place, and this is the most important part, you have to learn from what happened so you can improve your defenses for next time. And who handles this kind of emergency? It's not just a problem for the IT department. You need a dedicated privacy incident response team, or a PIRD. And this list right here shows you why this is a whole company issue. You absolutely need your IT and security experts.
But you also need legal to handle the regulations. You need human resources, especially if an employee was involved. You need corporate communications to manage the public story. And you need managers from the part of the business that was actually affected. And that brings us to our final, most important thought. Let's say your team did an amazing job. They contained the breach, they got rid of the cause, and they recovered all the systems. The immediate fire is out. But is the process complete? The answer is a hard no. The technical fix is only the beginning. The most critical part of incident response happens next, the lessons learned. What are you going to change in your policies, your training, your technology to make sure this never, ever happens again? That is the real